I was wiping down my old dining table. I had just finished baking the apple cobbler, the one my son Daniel used to ask for every Thanksgiving when he was little. I covered it gently with foil, placed it in the basket with the cranberry sauce and a jar of pickled carrots, my daughter-in-law favourite, though she never admitted it. By late afternoon, my phone buzzed. I smiled, certain it was my son, texting to ask if I needed a ride. But it wasn't. Just 11 words. You weren't invited to dinner. My wife doesn't want you there. Doesn't want you there. I read it again. And again. My thumb hovered above the keyboard, and then I typed, okay. But inside me something cracked. Okay? Okay that I'm no longer welcome? Okay that my love, inconvenient? Okay that the woman who raised him is now treated like a stranger? When did I stop being family? The food was still warm, but everything else inside me felt cold. My name is Marjorie Thompson. I'm 74 years old. I wasn't uninvited that night. I was just finally told the truth. The distance didn't begin with that message. It started long before that. I just pretended not to see it. The first time I felt it, really felt it, was Christmas Eve last year. I arrived at my son Daniel's house an hour early. The ham was in my trunk, homemade cookies in the passenger seat tied with ribbon. I'd even picked up the toy my grandson Billy liked, the one Sandra had forgotten to order. When I rang the doorbell, no one answered, so I let myself in, just as I always did. Sandra looked up from her phone, didn't even smile. Oh, you're early. She didn't offer to take the food in my car. Didn't say thank you. Daniel came out of the kitchen wiping his hands. Hey, Mom, he said, distracted. Can you help set the table? We're running a little behind. I said okay. By 6 p.m. I was alone in the kitchen, carving meat, stirring gravy, washing pots as they were dirtied. When dinner started, I sat at the far end of the table next to the kids, not the adults. They passed plates over me like I wasn't there. Sandra talked a lot about her mother's incredible roast last year. Daniel laughed at her stories. No one asked about mine. When gifts were opened, mine weren't even labelled right. From Grandma was scribbled in a rushed pen. One package, clearly from me, was credited to Sandra. And when it was over, no one said, thank you. Just, we'll see you next year. After that, I started noticing the little things. For Sandra's birthday, I brought her a scarf I had knitted myself. Nothing extravagant, just soft grey wool, something warm. Sandra took it and smiled politely. Oh, this is cute. I'll see if it matches my coat. She never wore it. Not once. Not even when the weather begged for it. Christmas cards with family photos never sent to me. Phone calls that ended with, "We'll call you back, Mom." They never did. The meals I dropped off were met with, "You're a lifesaver," but they never opened the containers while I was still there. I used to tell myself I was being old-fashioned. Maybe I talked too much. Maybe I didn't know when to leave. But all I ever really wanted was to be called what I used to be. Mom. And over time, even that disappeared. No Mom, no Marjorie, nothing, just silence. They don't push me out with words. Sometimes they just stop making space for me. I've never had much. No inheritance, no pension big enough to brag about. But I worked hard. 32 years at the public library. I saved. When Daniel's call came on a Tuesday night, panic in his voice. They were behind on their mortgage. Just a few months, he said. We're drowning here, Mom. I transferred the money the next morning. Didn't ask when he'd repay it. Didn't mention that it came from the emergency fund I'd built over decades. I just said, I'll help you, don't worry. When Sandra lost her job their first year of marriage, I started bringing groceries. Every Sunday. Chicken thighs, bags of rice, fresh produce from the market. They used to thank me. Then they started saying, "You're a lifesaver," which sounds sweet until it stops sounding like gratitude and starts sounding like an expectation. I paid part of Sandra's tuition when she went back to school. I co-signed a small loan when Daniel opened that repair shop. The one that folded in 11 months. He never brought it up again. Neither did I. When Billy got sick last winter, at midnight, Daniel called me before he called urgent care. I didn't hesitate. Threw on my coat and walked 3 blocks in the cold because I didn't want to wait for a cab. I sat up with Billy all night, cooling his forehead, humming the same lullaby I used to sing to Daniel when he was that small. The next morning, Sandra didn't ask how I slept. She just said, "Thank God you came." I gave them what I had. Not because I was obligated, because I loved them. And deep down, I hoped that if I gave enough, cared enough, they'd always make space for me. But I'm starting to realize something. They never held on to me for who I was, only for what I gave. Next morning, I wasn't expecting anything from Billy. My grandchild. He usually just sends photos. A drawing from school. A picture of the cat. But that morning it was a video. Sandra was pouring coffee. "I don't want your geezer there, Daniel. Is that clear?" Sandra's voice was sharp, clipped, no pretense left. Every year, same damn casserole, same droopy face like she's mourning something, then she scrubs the dishes like she's earning sainthood. Daniel tried, his voice soft. "She's not doing anything wrong." "Exactly," Sandra snapped. "She doesn't do anything, just sits there with those quiet eyes, waiting for someone to say thank you. Like we owe her a standing ovation for showing up." She scoffed. "I'm tired of the martyr act. I'm tired of her sucking the joy out of every damn dinner. I want one night, just where I don't have to fake it, where the whole room isn't walking on eggshells because she's sitting in the damn corner silently judging everyone." Daniel exhaled, defeated. "I'll tell her." The clip ended. And just like that, something inside me clicked. Not shattered, not broken, snapped. "I paid for the roof over your heads. I babysat your children when you needed sleep, cooked when you were tired, and paid bills you were too proud to admit you couldn't afford. And this is how you thank me? With mockery behind my back? With shame for simply existing in the space I helped create? Number not this time. I'm done playing the savior. I'm done making life easy for people who can't even say my name with respect. You wanted dinner without me? That's fine, because from now on, you'll learn to live without everything I gave. And maybe then, you'll understand what I truly meant to this family." By morning, I walked into the bank when it opened. The woman at the counter smiled warmly. "Good morning, Mrs. Hartwell. How can we help you today?" I slid my folder across the desk. "My name is Linda Hartwell. I'd like to suspend all automatic transfers effective immediately." She blinked. "All, as in, yes, every single one. Mortgage, car payments, tuition, health insurance. I want full control reinstated to me. No external beneficiaries, no joint authorizations." Her fingers tapped the keyboard. "There are 17 recurring transfers tied to your son's account alone." "I'm aware," I said calmly. "I've reviewed them." She paused. "Would you like to schedule a financial advisor to discuss the impact?" "There's no impact," I said. "Not to me." A silence settled. Professional. Respectful. She nodded and got to work. Mr. Grayson had been my estate lawyer for over a decade. I called him from the cafe across the street. "Linda," he said cheerfully, "how are the grandkids?" "I'm revising my will." That shut him up. "In person?" he asked. "Yes, and I'd like a full review of the living trust, healthcare proxy, and power of attorney documents. I want everything tightened. Reassigned where necessary." A pause, then. "Understood. When can you come in?" "Today." By noon, I was sitting across from him. He glanced at the old file. "You had Daniel listed as your financial and medical proxy. Do you want to remove him completely?" "Yes." "Do you have a replacement in mind?" "Emma," I said. "She's young but steady, and she sees me." He nodded. "And the house?" "Stays in my name. No rights of survivorship, no transfer on death to anyone. Bank accounts? Solo ownership, revoke all co-authorizations." Mr. Grayson leaned back, folding his hands. "Linda, I have to say most people don't make decisions like this without a lot of drama." I smiled faintly. That's because most people wait until the damage is done. I've just been watching it build, brick by brick, for years. By 3 p.m., everything was signed. I walked out of the office, not angry, but lighter. Not because I'd punished anyone, but because for the first time in decades, I had finally stopped paying for the privilege of being ignored. They never thought about the lifeboat until it quietly drifted away. Sandra nearly slammed her phone down on the kitchen counter. Declined? This is the third damn payment today. What the hell is going on, Daniel? Daniel sat at the dining table, jaw clenched, phone pressed to his ear. His fingers tapped the wood. Fast. Unsteady. He hung up. She froze the accounts, he said, voice tight. What accounts? All of them. He didn't look up. The mortgage fund, the utilities escrow, the tuition support account, all frozen or revoked. Sandra stared at him. You mean she just cut us off? Like that? Daniel nodded slowly. She cancelled every recurring payment, and she took me off her power of attorney. Sandra scoffed, pacing now. Unbelievable. After everything we've done for her. Daniel looked up, eyes flashing. What have we done for her? Sandra, she paid our mortgage for a year. And? We didn't ask her to. Daniel raised an eyebrow. We didn't stop her, either. She was doing what any mother would do, Sandra shot back. She's supposed to help. That's what family does. You don't just disappear and take everything with you. Daniel slammed his hand on the table. She didn't disappear. We erased her. Slowly, quietly, and she noticed. Sandra spun around. So now she's what? Punishing us. Financially manipulating her own son? Daniel didn't answer. Sandra narrowed her eyes. She's being vindictive. Rewriting her will behind our backs, pulling the rug out just to make a point. That's cruel, Daniel whispered. Maybe we earned it. No, Sandra hissed. She's being selfish. She's throwing away everything we've built because of one damn video. One video that showed who we really are. Sandra glared. Oh, don't go saint on me now. Daniel leaned back, voice low and bitter. She gave us everything, and we made her feel like nothing. A long, dangerous silence. Sandra looked away, then grabbed her keys. I'm not letting her get away with this, Daniel stood. She's not the one who did something wrong, Sandra. Sandra paused in the doorway, and for the first time her voice trembled, not with fear, but with something darker. Then maybe it's time someone reminded her who made her feel useful in the first place. They thought she needed them to feel valued. Now their biggest fear is that she doesn't anymore. The knocks were sharp, fast, aggressive. I didn't flinch. I already knew. They weren't here to talk. They were here to reclaim what they thought belonged to them. I opened the door. Sandra didn't wait. She barged in, heels clicking like a metronome of fury. Daniel followed, not even looking at me. Are you out of your mind? Sandra snapped. You think this is okay? Just, what, turning off the tap like that? Daniel dropped onto the couch like he was exhausted by my choices. Mum, he said, his voice low and rehearsed. We need to talk. You're making things hard for everyone. For Toby. For the kids. I said nothing. Sandra scoffed. Oh, what? Now you're doing the silent treatment? You think this is mature? You didn't even have the decency to tell us you were cutting us off? I didn't owe you that, I said quietly. Daniel blinked. Excuse me. I walked past them slowly, deliberately, and sat down in my chair, not across from them, higher, angled, in control. I didn't owe you an explanation for money that was never yours. Daniel's tone hardened. You're our mother, Sandra added. Family doesn't just ghost family, Linda. I turned to her. Family doesn't talk about me like I'm a burden to be hidden at dinner. Daniel stood up. That video, Mom, it wasn't like that. It was exactly like that, I cut in. Clear, unedited, undeniable. You didn't just exclude me, you resented me for even existing quietly in your space. Sandra folded her arms. You're overreacting. It was a private moment. No, I said, meeting her eyes. It was an honest one. They both fell silent. But I wasn't done. I leaned forward, hands steady on the armrest, not shaking, not flinching. You didn't just take my money, I said. You took my presence for granted. You let me buy my way into rooms I should have been welcomed into. Daniel opened his mouth, but I raised a hand. Tell me something, I continued. When was the last time either of you invited me to something that didn't involve food, favors, or funding? They said nothing. When Emma got her award last spring, you didn't even tell me. When Billy was in the school play, I found out from a neighbor. My voice didn't crack. You made it clear I was useful, but never wanted. Daniel looked down. Sandra muttered, That's not true. No, I turned to her. Then why did I watch a video of you listing all the ways I ruin your evening? With my silence, with my cooking, with my presence? Sandra's jaw tensed. People vent. That's normal. What's not normal is financial blackmail. I stood. That's where you're wrong, I said. This isn't blackmail, this is boundaries. And you're only uncomfortable because you've never had to live with mine. Daniel stood up too, more slowly. Weaker. So what? You're just done with us? No, I said softly. I'm done letting you mistake me for someone who doesn't matter. He swallowed hard. Mum? I walked to the door and opened it. You may leave now, when you're ready to speak, not demand, not accuse, not twist, but speak. As people who see me, you can knock again. Sandra hesitated. Daniel looked at me like I'd just disappeared, but I hadn't. I had finally arrived. They didn't knock again. Not the next day, not the next week. Not even after the bills came in, or when the tuition deadlines passed. The silence wasn't loud this time. It was clean, necessary. I heard through Emma that they'd sold the car, downsized the house. Sandra picked up part-time work. Daniel started budgeting for the first time in his adult life. Emma visits more often now, not because she needed anything, but because she didn't want me to feel alone. Turns out I never was. One night, she brought over dinner, just the two of us. Pasta, a bottle of red, and no hidden expectations. We laughed about things we hadn't had time to laugh about before, because I had always been too busy rescuing people who never said thank you. She asked me gently, Do you regret cutting them off? I paused, not because I was unsure, but because I finally didn't need to soften my truth. No, I said, because I didn't cut them off. I just stopped holding a rope. They were perfectly capable of grabbing themselves. Weeks passed. I took my first solo trip to the coast, walked the beach barefoot, ate what I wanted, slept when I felt like it. No alarms, no calls, just me. Not as a role, not as a support system, not as mom or the bank. Just me, Linda, and that was enough. I used to think freedom meant making sure everyone else was okay, that if the bills were paid, the children were fed, and no one was upset. Then I had done my part. Then I was allowed to breathe just a little. I thought love meant sacrifice. That being a good mother meant disappearing softly, slowly, until I became the silence that held the family together. But that wasn't freedom. That was servitude, wrapped in good manners and swallowed with a smile. Now, I wake when my body says it's rested, not when a clock tells me to serve. I cook what I like. I eat at the hour I choose. Alone sometimes, but never lonely. Because now I am in my own company. And I like her. I wear red lipstick, not to impress, but because it reminds me I'm still here. Bold, visible, undeniable. Last week, the barista at the cafe smiled and said, That's a beautiful colour on you. You look like you're going somewhere fun. I wasn't, but I smiled anyway, because finally, I am going somewhere, inward. I signed up for a watercolour class at the community centre. My hands trembled the first day, not because of age, but because I had never done anything that didn't begin with someone else's name on the list of needs. Now I go every week, and when the paint hits the paper, I remember there's still colour left in my life, and it's mine to choose. One of the women in the class leaned over and whispered, "I always love what you paint. It's so calm." I almost cried, not because it was praise, but because it had been years since someone saw something I made and simply said it was beautiful. Sometimes I pass mothers in the grocery store, juggling toddlers and coupons, eyes tired from trying to be everything. And I want to stop and whisper, "You don't have to vanish to be loved. You don't have to earn your place by being empty first." I didn't just reclaim my bank account, I reclaimed my rhythm. My name, not just Mom, not the helper, but Linda. And I will never again sit quietly at a table where my value is measured by what I bring in my hands instead of who I am in my heart. From now on, I won't beg for a seat. I'll bring my own chair, and I will sit in it fully, whole, proud, and free. One evening, Emma poured me a glass of wine and said, "You seem lighter lately. Like your smile finally belongs to you." I didn't need to explain why. I just smiled back and said, "It does. And that is more than enough." So, that's how the story ends. If this made you think, or if you've lived through something similar, share your thoughts in the comments. Our channel is a space for sharing tales of the elderly and family revenge stories from people who have weathered life's storms. Subscribe to the channel for more, because sometimes the deepest form of revenge is simply living on your own terms.